Hello. So I want to show you how to iterate some data inside AgilePoint process. So the first thing is, where does the data come from? So I have a web service deployed and I just want to show you what comes back. So it gets back an array of product with dedicated product items. A product item has an article number and the description. So the scenarios: we have AgilePoint process, it gets kicked off, it retrieves the data from the web service and it iterates through all the products here inside. So this web service, it is accessible through this URL. So I grab the URL, and the first thing is in AgilePoint to build an app. I call it MJA iteration, and with the driven approach we get asked for the process model. And it gets kicked off by a form, so we will enter our customer ID. So what we did before is I created a global access token. So for every resource that is external, for example a web service, a database, SAP and so on, you can create a global access token. So this URL is specified, and so if you click test connection, the credentials work fine. So we will use the web service, but first our process will start by kicking off with a form. So just build the form. I name it kickoff. It is blank due to the fact that we haven't specified anything before, no other forms, no form parts, so it's totally blank. The next thing is the form title. We name it kickoff. And we want to enter our customer ID. We grab a number box and call it customer ID. And we tell the system it is mandatory, and we give it a default value 21. So let's just enter some data. Save the form. Go back to the configuration. So we call it submit. And finish. So we are fine. So the next thing is that we want to call the web service. So we grab the web service stencil and just drag the simplest one on the canvas. Get products. And for this it's some technical stuff, so the connection timeout, it is 1 second, so I just give a higher number, tell it 5 seconds. So due to the fact that we created the access token, we can select it. Otherwise we can create some local access token. So we already specified the access token to the web service. Now we can select the methods, so it is called get ordered products, and so we have our form field and we can map the stuff to the web service. So that's the one thing, and the other thing is we get a response but we need some data where we can map it to in our process. So that's the thing that we have to specify. So you can do this in the model data. So we call this, it's a root element, we call it products, and it has a child called product, and this has a child which I name article, the article ID, and the other thing is the description. So that's fine. Later on in the iteration, so we map some data. We need to specify some data where we can store it. So it is the current article ID and the current description. The current description, so the current item. And what we need as well, it is a looping variable, so it needs to be of type Boolean, and I call it exit loop. So this is the data model that we need, that we can iterate the stuff. So just hit OK, and we go on specifying the web service, how we call the web service, the input, and what we get back. Get products. So select the access token, select the method, and the input is the customer ID to the web service, and the response, what comes back from the web service, is now on the left side, our process data on the right side. So due to the fact that we have reoccurrence data, we have to map the product as well. So there was one little arrow. What we modeled, so I can go back to the model data, and we mark the product as repeatable. So that's fine now. Go through the wizard one more time and just double check out the things. So on the left hand side, it is our process data, our model data, as well the form fields are accessible directly. So very comfortable. And the next thing is what is coming back from the web service. So the root node has multiple occurrence as well, so you can get multiple products back. So we map it, the root node, from product to product, and the subnodes article number to article ID, and the description to the description. So that's fine. And we just finish the stuff. So we have the web service, it returns some data, and now we want to iterate through the stuff. So we use the looping functionality. So you have to use two shapes. The one is the looping init, and the other one is the get next data row. So I call it init loop. So Next thing is we map the web service result to our repeating node. So it shows the children here on the dataset column, and the next thing is we map it to the article ID and, for example, to the description. And the last thing is a variable. It's for internal usage, and you don't have to set this variable, just read it. The init loop and the loop next, they will fill this variable, and if you have iterated all the data rows, you can exit the loop, so you will see. So this is the entry. So it is called the init loop. So what it will do is just to retrieve the count of rows, for example, and how to retrieve the values. So it's the init loop. And next thing is when you exit the loop, so you have to model it in a condition. So we specify the variable, so we will use this one. It is called exit loop, and if this is true, so we will leave. So exit loop, and I name this iterate. Okay, so what we have now is the init loop looks up how many data rows are inside, and if there is no data row inside, so the exit loop condition will set to true, and we will go on. Otherwise, if there are entries to loop through are inside the data we specified, so it will specify the exit loop condition to false, and we go to this branch and do something with the data. So we will go on and just model this stuff. So next is we want to get the data, so we will use the loop next. Get item, we call this get item, and we have to specify which initiate loop activity depends to this one. So we have the get item, and the next thing is that we do something with the raw data. So the simplest thing is, for example, just send an email with this, but you can do what you want with the data row. So I call it notify. So I haven't specified. We specify a new email template, so I call it notify. We send it to the process initiator who kicked off the process, and the content will be iteration and the article. So we will take it from the current item, so it is the article ID, and the other one is the description. Okay, that's fine. So this is the right thing.